Hey, Balanced Lady Bosses. I am ready to have this conversation. And if you saw the topic, you know that we are talking about something that either you may be feeling or maybe your girl group is feeling, but nobody is really talking about it in a way that they're actually solving for the problem or the challenge, right? So, the problem or challenge that you may be having is that you're feeling a lot more pressure, a lot more stress. Maybe you're a lot more distracted or feel like you're being pulled in a million directions all at the same time. And because of that, I would say that it is a scary time to be a woman. So for those of you who have been following me for a while, you may be like, well, Stacey, I don't know that I would say it's a scary time. I mean, I think everybody is going through challenges and changes, etc. But let's focus on this group for a moment. The persons who typically follow this show are in the Gen X or the I wouldn't say Gen Z so much, but the Gen X's and the millennials are definitely big followers of this show, right? So, for those of you in that category who may also be corporate women working, right? You're out there, you're working it. And even for some of you who are in the baby boomer 2 category, where you may still be out there working and doing the thing, it is you who I'm talking to that may be feeling a bit scared in this moment. And possibly you haven't identified it as a feeling of, not secure, not feeling so secure or safe, right? But I'm going to break down some of the threats that you may be experiencing that are happening in our now. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because we can use as much support as we can get. And of course, this is my passion space, right? I am a woman who has been in corporate for most of my life. Although that is shifting, I'm still serving the corporate woman through this show and my other programs. And so I thought about some of the conversations that I was having with my girlfriends. And one of them, like literally the other day, we were out to dinner at this really cool restaurant in Atlanta called Agave. And, or maybe it's Agave, but I call it Agave. And we were just talking about all the different challenges that we experience, because that's what girlfriends do when you go out, you just mash up about all the different things. And one of my lady friends said, it's such a scary time for us. And I was getting ready to be like, no, it's not a scary time. You can't look at it like that. And, put a positive spin on things. As you can imagine, being my friend, you get a lot of that, right? And then I took a step back and I said, but Stacey, there is something here. Possibly there are women who are not feeling safe in their now moment, not feeling that sense of certainty and security in their everyday environment. And the reason for this, guys, is because we do have a lot more new pressures that we are under, right? And you are probably at the effect of or feeling those pressures. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the different threats that the woman of 2022 may be experiencing. And then we're going to tap into some of the strategies that you can use. I'm going to talk about 5 specific strategies that you can use that I have been using to navigate this new normal. And in a way that it's not like you just on the struggle bus and you're kind of feeling. No, we're going to talk about navigation that is touching on some of that soft life argument that you're hearing out there now. That is really focusing on empowering you so that you're stepping more into your fullness and into your beingness and really taking away the scare out of the scary time that we are all experiencing. All right. So, first things first, we're going to go through some of the threats that we are all experiencing just based on the time that we are now in. So, first of all, first and foremost, first threat, our environment highlights all of the challenges that women in particular are experiencing. So, never before has there been so much talk about women and our rights and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the Me Too movement, and just all the different labels for the different types of programs and initiatives that are out there to support women. And while it may be that these things are great, I mean, clearly I have a whole show, Balance Lady Boss, and a lot of products that are supporting today's woman, sometimes what ends up happening is the news and the things that you are hearing about aren't really highlighting the solutions. It's just highlighting how much of the problem there is, all of the different things that are happening to women out there, and it creates a lot of upset and a lot of anger, right? And I'm not saying that we should not talk about the challenges that we experience. However, if all you're doing is watching the news about the things that are, a problem for us, let's look at Me Too as an example. Hashtag Me Too. If all you're doing is going down all of the stories of the women that have been affected by a Me Too experience, right? So if you are a woman who has been sexually abused or assaulted, especially in a work environment, right, and you feel like you have not been heard, maybe your report for this male that may have assaulted you is somewhere lost in the fray of their greatness, right? Maybe you suffered at the hand of that, and the tendency is going to be to read all the stories of all the women who are like you or who you feel empathy and sympathy and compassion for. And so then what happens is you just have a lot more of that in your head as opposed to focusing on something else, right? So that's one of the threats. One of the threats is that our environment right now, the real news, the fake news, the socially amped up news, right? All of those things are amping up, highlighting the challenges that women are experiencing. And so the feeling of being unsafe or not having security or not having approval is paramount these days. Okay, so that's one threat. Another threat that you may be at the effect of is the expansion of our roles. And I know that, it's a great time to be a woman, some folks would say, because now there are so many opportunities. You see women just advancing all the way up the ladder. We have a vice president of the United States that's a Black Asian American, right? I hope I got that right. Right? And so, you're seeing just lots of examples of women in leadership positions, right? And at the same time, the amount of work that is being piled onto a woman's desk is also expanding. So there is a lot more of that kind of expansion for what a woman is capable of. Now, historically, if you think about it, right, we shifted away from being homemakers or homekeepers to being homemakers and homekeepers, as well as um, boss moms and sometimes individual or single providers, right? As well as a daughter, sister, whatever other areas of your life that you have expanded into, right? And at work, if you are bossing it and looking to climb that corporate ladder, you are also experiencing more work at work, right? Because as we are demanding it, we're getting it, yes? And with this expansion, the more work, the more power, the more responsibilities, we have the same amount of time that was 100% originally dedicated to being homekeepers or homemakers. Okay? And so that is a significant threat because many of us have not stopped to recognize that you may need to make shifts in your life in order to navigate all the demands that you have now taken on. And I will say, guys, that I am one of those persons who for a while I wasn't clear about, you can actually manage how you're using your time and how you're setting up. I did not feel empowered enough to create healthy boundaries around both my home life and my work life and my relationship life. And so what ended up was hard life, right? So this threat of our roles expanding is a real one. And many of you may be at the effect of it and not even realize that you are at the effect of it. All right? So that's threat number 2. Threat number 3, we're doing more tearing down than we are building up, or so it may seem. The threat of crabs in a barrel and women not supporting women and the broken rung is still a real deal, right? For many persons, myself included, you have experienced being thrown under the bus by another woman. It hasn't happened to me often, but it has certainly happened, and I will never forget it. Okay? Or forget the woman who created that, right? But then there's something to be said for what we're allowing in our space, because I think what I recognized certainly about myself in the tearing down part and that being a threat is just based on the woman that I have in my life, right? So who am I being that I am attracting persons who are going to build me up rather than tear me down, right? But we're not ready for the solutions yet. Let's talk about that threat, because it's a real threat. You do have women who are actively feeling like they're being pulled down or set back by other women in the workplace or in their lives in general, but in the workplace, because that's where we spend most of our time as lady bosses, right? So that's threat number 3. And then threat number 4 is one that you are all very familiar with. But boy, I can tell you something. This conversation of comparison being the thief of joy, which is directly linked to imposter syndrome, which I've talked about several times on the show, is a real and present threat, and one that continues to stymie or hamper our quantum leaps into success, right? And I know that it's one of the struggles that I have had to be particularly vigilant about with my mind, because it's all programming, right? And if you had this program running on any level, which I did, and many of you have, if you have this programming running on any level, then it's just waiting for another opportunity, another trigger to have it rear its ugly head. Okay? And if you haven't actually watched the episode on imposter syndrome, I'll put it in the show notes. You definitely want to go back and either listen to or watch the imposter syndrome episode and the reflections episode, because it was really, I think that one was one of my favorites, and it's done very well on the podcast. So we have these 4 threats. And I mean, we broke it down into 4 big buckets, but they are real and present. Sometimes it can just be one threat that take you down, that just snatch your joy, snatch your happiness, snatch your forward movement. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to move beyond the threat. First of all, you need to recognize them. You need to recognize that you are at the effect of these things, one way, shape, or form, and then identify where you can get tools to actually move you beyond the experience of these threats. So that's what we're going to focus on now. So we're moving into now just some of the tactics that I have been using, and how they've been helping me. Okay, so first and foremost is I think the best tactic in this entire list, right? And you can literally develop an entire my best self strategy that you put these different tactics under. But the first thing, when you are really navigating it being a scary time, this is now when you are going to be affirming yourself. That's what this time is about. This time is about affirming yourself. And that's one of the reasons why you see so many different programs like Therapy for Black Girls, Better Help, all of these different programs, and even inside of organizations. Like especially in the US, I've done research and have found that companies are now hiring other companies that provide this type of support and making it a part of the staff benefit, so you can go and actually get support in processing your thinking and all that. So the self affirmation is really key during this time. You have to get up and be really pouring into yourself on a daily basis. Okay, so that's the very first thing that I recommend. And when you are affirming yourself, there are a couple of things that happen as a result of that. The first thing that happens is that you are actually celebrating your greatness because you are affirming yourself. You are spending time to highlight the things that are great about you, that you're either you have them now or you're creating them, right? And through that self affirmation, you are celebrating the greatness that you know you are. Even if you're not exhibiting those qualities in this moment, you know you are those great things. Okay? So the self affirming person is someone who every day seeks out an opportunity carves out time to spend with themselves, intentionally speaking positively into themselves, right? And it will, if let me give me a second here, and what you will see is this is one of the ways that you can affirm yourself, right? You can take your favorite affirmations and you can make it into a part of your office decor, right? As I did with this affirmation, I am limitless. My mind is a fertile playground filled with thoughts of abundance, new ideas, and limitless possibilities. That just make me feel good right away. I just read it and I'm like, I'm there. I read it and I feel good again. I'm like, yes, I'm limitless, right? So when you are a self affirming woman, it allows you to remind yourself, which sometimes is a forward memory, because many of us, we get so caught up in all the things that are wrong with our lives. We can't really find the goodness, the good things, right? The goody goody, can't find it, right? And so you have to create the joy that you want in words, in pictures. We talk about your vision board. Yeah, you can get to the vision board things faster if you are actually emitting an energy that's going to attract them to you. So this is where the affirmative side of yourself comes in. Speaking of self affirmation, I am going to just big up one of our sponsors today, Epic Transformation, the creator of these intention cards, is our sponsor for today, and they're actually an official partner of the show. And these intention cards are perfect for self affirmation work. Sometimes you can't come up with your own words, and so these cards are a great way to help you ground in positive thoughts, allowing you to guard your thoughts, right, with the things that are going to bring you closer to that feeling of safety and security. So if you're feeling scared, like I'm a woman and it's a hard time for me right now and I don't know how I'm navigating all of this space, the first thing you can do is start doing that self affirmation work. And these cards, there's 52 in the deck, and you can pull one every day. There's lots of different ways that you can practice with the cards, and they are available very easily for you to grab one on Amazon. And those directions or instructions, the link for that is in the show notes. And of course, depending on your appetite, there is a free bonus gift if you purchase the deck of cards through the link that has been provided. So make sure that you take a look at that. So that's our partner sponsor, Epic Transformation, and the Epic Intention cards. I hope you guys enjoy the deck. All right, so we are continuing on to our strategies to combat this scary time that we are all in as women. So the first one we talked about was really self-affirming, stepping into celebrating your greatness, stepping into that greatness that you know you have, whether or not you're currently experiencing it or you're creating it. The second one that I wanted to touch on is focus. So this particular approach to navigating it being a scary time is one that I can't stop talking about. Do you realize how much fake news you watch, read, or listen to? And if it's not the fake news, it's the doomsday argument, right? If you pay attention to where doomsday is leaking into your life and start to get rid of it, let me tell you something. You see negative talk, whether it's gossip or it is news that is all about the bad thing that's happening, or it's the thing that is spun to sound like it's actually affirming you, but ultimately they're tearing you down. The office gossip at the about the boss after the boss leave the room, that is not really helping anybody to get any favors with the boss. Okay, so all these different ways that negative conversations, negative energy can get into your space, it is like a cancer. Sometimes it even creates cancer. Okay, that's my belief, right? And so the only thing to do with that kind of cancerous behavior, and it's a part of your behavior if you allow yourself access to it. That was a little hard for me to swallow as well, because I was like, but I don't gossip. No, but you listen to gossip. Okay. So The only way to deal with cancer is to cut it out, right? And so when you think about where you are focusing your energy, if you remember when I talked about the first threat, it's our environment highlights the issues and the challenges that we are experiencing as women. I'll tell you a story that will help to bring home the point, right? When I was getting ready to publish the book, 5 Year Love Affair, which I've also put the information for in the show notes, by the way. When I was getting ready to purchase the book, 5 Year Love Affair, I mean, to publish the book, 5 Year Love Affair, I was doing marketing research. And one of the tactics that they teach you in digital marketing is if you can't pay for advertising, right? One of the things that you should do is join different support groups for the topic of whatever it is you're selling. So I take that on, and Stacey, she can't just join one group. She have to join 10 group for all the different things. So I joined 10 group on divorce. I joined 10 group on cancer. I joined 5 group on depression. I was just a group maniac on Facebook. So I joined all these groups, and the idea is that you'll be in the groups and you'll participate in the conversation, and then eventually you can start talking about your project, and it won't seem like you're just going there to advertise, even though so that's really what you're doing, right? Okay. So here goes Stacey, excited about I have this opportunity that I'm going to go on and I'm going to try to connect with people who would jive with my message and want to follow me and maybe buy my products, right? Okay. You see, after week 1, I started to have bare thoughts about getting cancer again. And I was starting to have all kind of recollections about the sad times in my marriage. It was just literally, guys, there was so much focus in those groups on all the things that happened that made the situation worse. So it's not like you're in there and you're overcoming divorce or you're striving after, let's say it was called striving after divorce. Every woman in the group, most, let's say not every, 80%, 80% of the women in the group come in there to cuss them husband or them ex-husband. Them talking about how he was a cheater and how he used to beat them. And them show pictures of once upon a time when them was with him and it was horrible and oh, look at me now. Well, just look at me now. Why we have to see when you were with him? Right? And what I recognized is that people are addicted to focusing on the things that provide them with understanding, with empathy, with compassion. You ever hear the term misery loves company? My grandmother used to say that to me all the time. And guess what, honey? It is so true. When you are in these support groups on Facebook and you are in the group to actually help you to shift away from the thing that you are struggling with, if they're all they're talking about is the struggle, then leave the group. Because what you focus on expands. So if in the group the focus is the struggle, even if they're talking about, oh, I remember when, he would come home and tell me the excuses, and then the next day, I would argue with him and he would buy me something nice and I would just forget it. Like, I don't want to hear about that. That's gone. All you're doing is reminding me about my issues that I used to have. I'm not trying to go back there, right? So, I mean, it will actually prove to be content. Clearly, I'm using it as content right now. It proved to be content for my programs because I can tell you, I can literally go into any group right now, any of these support groups, and I can easily find the top 10 problems that these women struggle with because that's all they talk about is a problem, right? So the second tactic, guys, is really for you to find a better conversation to have with yourself and others. And when I say find a better conversation to focus on or to have with yourself, I mean what you are reading, watching, or listening to. There's always a better conversation to be had, always. All right? Now, let's move on to tactic number 3. So, one of the threats that we identified was about our roles expanding, but the time that we are executing these roles in is not expanding. Okay? And the truth is that the way that you can really navigate that is by looking at the dynamic opportunities that have come with your role expansion because of the time that we're in. So, I would say 10 years ago, I don't know how I would have navigated a pandemic because hybrid working and remote working was just nowhere close to possible as it is now. And because of that, I now command a situation where I work where I want. I work anywhere. I set my hours. And it's not just because I'm a C-suite person or because I now currently run my own company. It's not just because of that, but that helps, right? It's not just because of that. It's because of the time that we're in. Many of us as women are working the same way that we did 5 years ago, right? We have to show up at work at 6 and then we leave at 6. We have to be on when we finish and we get home and we're doing all the things with the kids. We have to get back on work because somebody's having a meeting and we can't not be in the meeting. And like, come on now. With dynamic opportunities, which is what we find happening now, we find lots of dynamic opportunities, not just flexi work, but also role changes, right? Just in the way that the roles are advancing, you now have much more opportunities as contractors, that you can work through a contract versus that being an employee, just depending on what your needs are. There's just a lot of dynamism in the work world, so you don't have to be applying the same principles you did 10 years ago, 15 years ago into this now moment. Some of us, even when our companies have put in policies that allow us to create more latitude and flexibility in our lives, we are so, you know, attached to the habits that we had before flexi work. We don't know how to do anything else. And we're afraid to try it. And so, even though we may be overwhelmed, we may be burning out, we may be stressed out, because we are not brave enough, we're not courageous enough, or we're not taking the time to stop to actually investigate, well, how can I do this differently? It's almost like you have not opened your mind to think about what is available to you. I will say that I cannot, unfortunately, I cannot say that this is a problem I have had. Ever since I got cancer, my whole desire, even though I wasn't living it right away, I will say, when I got cancer, I wasn't living this desire right away, but it was there. I was writing it down in my journal. I was talking about it to myself. My desire is the soft life. That's my desire. I want to have success without the stress, overwhelm, and burnout. That is the mantra of the show, right? So if that is the mantra of the show, and it is now my life experience, okay, because girl, let me tell you, I live in hard life, behind, far distant, go away hard life, right? um if it is available to me, and I don't believe I come from any kind of excitement background, any kind of high privilege background. And it's true, right? If it can happen for me, it can happen for you. You just have to be intentional about creating it. So you can create these dynamic ways of working and ways of being so that your life experience is one that equals the desires of your heart. Because the time that we are in now affords you that opportunity. And you don't have to leave your job and become an entrepreneur, because that is not a soft life, I can tell you. Okay? Mm-hmm. No matter how much they sell it to you, entrepreneurship is not soft life. That's not what it means. All right? So, dynamic roles equal dynamic opportunities. And now your role has expanded and you can look to create something different for yourself than what you are currently creating that may not be serving you as well. All right. Next strategy. And this one is specifically kind of lining up with the tearing down versus the building up. I will say that there was a time that I believed that there were more crabs in a barrel in the woman's space than there were ladder holders. And a ladder holder is a woman that not only whether she has climbed that exact ladder or not, but she's the woman that is going to hold the ladder for you so that you can climb towards an opportunity that you are desiring. That's a ladder holder. Okay? They're not going to break the rung so that you can either fall on your journey, or they can get ahead of you, or they have to tear you down because they feel they need to do that in order to get ahead. Whichever way you want to say it. Them not bad minding you. Them not over there trying to pull you down. Right? So the truth is that real queens fix each other's crowns. And I had to step into a space where I had to look at myself and say, well, what kind of woman do you want in your life? Because clearly you have attracted people who are not building you up. They feel they need to tear you down in order to advance themselves, or they're going to set a trap for you that they know that really isn't serving you in order to feel good about the stuff that they're doing. I've experienced different versions of it, right? Or they're going to make you feel bad because you are trying to create a new life for yourself, and they're not necessarily at the same place you are and able to do the same thing for themselves, and so it becomes a whole situation, right? So lots of different ways that it can occur, or it can make you feel like, well, this is what being girlfriends looks like. You always are gonna have your bad mind one, you always are gonna have your jealous one, you always are gonna have the one that going to throw you under the bus so she can get ahead. Right? No, that's no. Okay? So it's just based on the type of relationship that you are going to be attracting. And there was a time in my life where I had these kinds of women in my life. And the truth is that it wasn't so much them I had to look at, I had to look at me first. Don't mean that I didn't have the arguments, or I didn't have the triggered moments because of what I may have experienced. But ultimately, what I learned is that I need to look at myself, and I need to understand, well, why is it that this woman is in your life and is able to have access to you like that, where she can tear you down, right? And so I really learned real queens fix each other's crowns. All of us have room to be queens. It is a scarcity mindset that makes you feel that you have to take down another woman in order for you to step ahead. It is a scarcity mindset that makes you feel that you have to, if you are climbing, there isn't enough room on the ladder to scoot over and she can climb along with you, right? And once you recognize that your scarcity mindset, even if it's not about a woman, it may be about something else, that scarcity begets scarcity. And poverty consciousness begets poverty, right? And so you're going to end up attracting that in your space. And sometimes, you have your good friends, and you don't want to look at the situation and recognize that, this person really, they're not about me. They're not actually not about anybody. Or maybe they're about this one person, but they're not really trying to help me out, right? And it's not hard to spot. You ladies know what I'm talking about. It's not hard to spot when a woman is not for you or is holding the ladder for you. You know it when it's happening to you. You feel it, right? And so you have to now recognize that if you are stepping into your queendom, and you are ready to ascend to your greatness, then the work is about you, because ultimately, in order for you to separate yourself from those people, those women who are not the ones who are ladder holders or even supporting you on your journey and are going to throw you under the bus in a minute, in order to separate yourself from those persons, especially when they're deeply entrenched relationships, you're going to need some strength about you, because you may have to have a conversation that's difficult to have, or you may have to let go of whatever benefit you were getting from that relationship. You know? Yeah. So, if you're ready to really be a queen, then know that you can welcome other queens into your company. Because right now, I can tell you categorically that the women in my life fix my crown, and I fix their crowns. Okay? Ooh, that one made me feel good. Yeah. All right. Now, the last strategy that I wanted to share with you guys today was really about the comparison situation. Comparison is a thief of joy. We have talked about this many times, right? And so, in order for us to really navigate this space of comparison and jealousy, okay, you have to first of all get familiar with what is it that triggers you. What is it about seeing somebody on your feed, hearing something, or having somebody say something to you or mention something to you? What is it that triggers that feeling of I am not enough, I'm not good enough, or why them and not me, or I know it can never be me, or whatever? What is it that triggers? What activities, what things do you get exposed to? What is it that triggers these feelings for you? So that's the first thing you need to do. You need to get familiar with what exactly it is that triggers you. Now, once you have identified your triggers, the next thing that I always talk about is you really want to focus on the things that you're grateful for. So nothing like gratitude, or gratitude practice, to actually shift you away from comparing yourself to others and feeling the envy or the jealousy. Nothing like gratitude to help to bring you back to center. So know your triggers and then get back to gratitude as quickly as you can. So get back to gratitude. Another thing that you can try, and this is the last one that I'll share here, is to embrace the other persons, the competition, the success of others. Embrace and appreciate that this can actually happen. Whatever it is that you're seeing, that you're thinking, I want, or I don't have, or I wish I had, or whatever, you want to embrace being able to see it happening for somebody else, because it is in seeing it happen for somebody else that you know it can happen for yourself. This was one of the things that actually helped me in navigating the space of comparison, because before it was all about the not having, the scarcity mindset. And then it became, oh, but if somebody else has it, that means I can get it too. Right? And then it's like, oh my gosh, but yeah, I don't have that, but I am grateful for. And wow, it's so wonderful to see that this other person has been able to achieve that or is experiencing that, because that means that it is available for me too. That used to happen a lot in the love space for me. And it's one of the spaces I think that women in particular struggle with. It's seeing another woman having this wonderful, loving relationship. And even if you're not hating on her, it's the feeling inside like you can't get that for yourself. Like, Lord, before I wish that could be me. Boy, things just hard. I can't find a good man. Oh, Lord, I don't know when. Right? Instead of, wow, look what's possible. Oh my gosh. Okay, that is a perfect example of what I want my love experience to be like. I'm going to put that on my vision board right now. Or when you see it and you get an initial feeling of warmth on the inside, and then writing down that feeling and saying, yes, this is how I want my man to treat me. I want him to hold my hand when I'm walking outside, like whatever. But being able to see something that you don't have and be grateful, or happy that somebody else has it, because you know then that you can create that for yourself. Okay? So, guys, I talked with you today about the reason why it is a scary time to be a woman. And I gave you 4 different threats that you may be personally experiencing right now. And the 5 tips, the 5 strategies, the 5 tactics. Okay? We talked about the 5 different ways that you can navigate these new times that we are in. Because it's not necessarily going to shift. Change is inevitable. Okay? The only thing that is constant is change. And so, since change is inevitable, the person who survives is the person that can adapt to that change. And so, as a woman, especially a woman who's in corporate, whether or not you are in the leadership space yet, you have the power and the capacity to adapt to change and create the dynamic, amazing life that you desire. All right? So I hope this episode helped you guys. I'm so looking forward to having much more of these conversations with you. Thanks again for joining the Balanced Lady Boss Show. Please be sure to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and follow me on all my different channels. I'm very active on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I'm looking out for you there. Feel free to message me and check out the different deals that we have for you in the show notes. Take care. Until next time.